Republic of South Sudan, Your Excellency Dr. Mutuzo Peace Riggs, State Minister of Gender and Cultural Affairs, Republic of Uganda, Your Excellency David Mahozi, State Minister of Internal Affairs, Republic of Uganda, Excellencies, our partners, Your Excellency Denisa Elena Iote, EU Ambassador to Djibouti, representatives from ILO, IOM, GIZ, representatives of the trade unions and employers. All protocol is observed. At the outset, this assembly allow me to express on my behalf and IGAD our deepest condolences to the government and the Republic of Kenya, to the family of the late Right Honorable Raila Odinga, former Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya, and indeed to all those across the IGAD region who mourns his passing. His distinguished life, which is one of the sustained commitment to democracy, unity and dignity of all, has left an indelible imprint on Kenya and beyond. I further express my profound gratitude to the government and the people of Kenya for hosting this critical conference. Kenya's leadership in labor migration governance, alongside your contemporaries, our esteemed IGAD member states, you collectively are working towards safe, orderly, legal, and right-based migration through comprehensive bilateral labor agreements with the Gulf states, robust pre-departure programs, and pioneering diaspora engagement, setting benchmarks for our region. Your Excellencies, we are privileged to convene with you, the policy makers who are charged with the responsibility of setting policy and translating into that policy to the practical issue. I also wish to acknowledge my gratitude to invaluable technical and financial support provided by our partners, specifically the European Union, the International Labour Organization, the International Organization for Migration, whose steadfast collaboration continues to strengthen our collective efforts. It would be remiss if we do not recognize the IGAD Secretariat, my team headed by Ambassador Musa, for their professionalism and tireless dedication in preparing for this conference, which stands as a testament to our shared resolve to promote decent work, safe migration, and inclusive development across our region. 4 years ago, Your Excellencies, in Djibouti, we made a promise through the Djibouti Declaration to transform how our region governs labor, employment, and migration. Today, the promises faces its greatest test. Across our region now, while I'm speaking, 62 million people face acute food insecurity, while 25 million have been forcibly displaced. These are mothers, fathers, young people searching for dignity through safety, find work and opportunity wherever it can be found. Our region of almost 300 million people, out of that 60% under age of 25, should have its useful energy as our greatest asset. Instead, with unemployment at 60% and youth jobless reaching almost 28%, we are witnessing a demographic dividend turn into demographic risk. Every year, Your Excellencies, 1.5 million of our citizens migrate to the Middle East and Gulf countries seeking work. While many travel through regular channels, too many also drive only by desperation, take the Red Sea route. In 2024 alone, 60,000, almost 60,000 migrants arrived in Yemen irregularly. Over the past decade, this route has claimed more than 3,000 lives of the citizens of our region. Each number is a family waiting, a future extinguished. Workers who reach their destination often find conditions that strip them of dignity. Domestic workers endure contract substitution and wage theft. Construction workers face unsafe conditions without recourse. The kafala system continues to enable exploitation and deny basic freedoms. We know this reality. I'm not telling you a new thing, Your Excellencies. The question is simple. What will really we can do to stop these challenges our citizens are facing? The Djibouti Declaration chartered a clear course across 7 pillars. We established the IGAD Ministerial Committee, which is this one, developed a 10-year plan of action, and launched our 5-year program for implementation. Progress has been real, but uneven. Some member states have advanced bilateral labor agreements and strengthening pre-departure programs. Our 2020 labor attaché training improved consultant support, and we are ready to support on training our labor attachés of our member states by IGAD Secretariat. Yet, there is still a big gap. ILO Convention ratification lags. Social protection coverage barely reached only 10%. Fair recruitment remains more aspiration than the reality. This conference, Your Excellencies, must be a different conference. The lives being lost in the Red Sea, the abuse faced by workers abroad, and youth unemployment pushing people toward irregular migration demand urgent intervention, Your Excellencies. We need a concrete commitment on this migratory challenge related to this Red Sea route. We need a whole of route approach addressing root causes, providing humanitarian support in transit, dismantling trafficking networks, and ensuring decent work in destination countries through equal partners with the Gulf Cooperation and Council of States. I'm very happy that in our tete-a-tete room there, the ministers were discussing about how effectively coordinate their efforts to make our workforce very relevant. In spite of dealing separately, the power of coming together and dealing and bargaining for the better job condition. On labor migration governance, the time for baseline assessment has passed. We have done enough and have the information in our hands. We need functioning bilateral labor agreements that protect workers' rights, not just manage only flows. We need portable social protection so a worker from Somalia, for example, can access health care in Saudi Arabia or other Gulf countries. We need regional coordination on fair recruitment that eliminates exploitation fees. The IGAD Single Visa Initiative represents a transformative opportunity to facilitate legitimate movement while reducing initiatives for irregular migration. But technology alone Your Excellencies, will not solve these challenges. We need political will to harmonize our labor laws. This is one of the very reason IGAD is here. Recognize qualifications across borders and ensure economic integration service working people, not just a capital. Our upcoming IGAD 2026-30 strategic plan positions labor and livelihoods at the heart of the regional integration, recognizing that sustainable peace and climate resilience depend on people having decent work and pathways to prosperity. The Doha Dialogue launched in May 2024 provides a platform we must leverage strategically. But dialogue without implementation is, Your Excellency, merely a ceremony. We need binding commitments, joint monitoring mechanisms, and consequences for non-compliance. Excellencies, the young woman, for example, from Obok, deciding whether to board a smuggler's boat tonight will not be swayed by our declarations. She will be swayed by opportunity at home or safe pathway abroad. The migrant worker facing abuse will find protection only when we establish functioning system for redress and ensure bilateral agreements have this. This is our moment, Your Excellencies. We, as a region, the Gulf countries and others, they need our labor. We have to move to capture, to harvest this investment. Having a clear policy, coordination, and getting out from statements to systems, from aspiration to action. Let this conference produce a covenant with measurable commitments, clear timelines, designated resources, and accountability mechanisms. IGAD, as a secretariat, Your Excellency, we are ready to implement whatever decision you take today at this room. The 25 million displaced persons in our region, the millions trapped in unemployment, and young people contemplating dangerous journeys are watching us. History will judge us not by the elegance of our resolutions, but by whether lives change after we leave this room. I thank you very much, Excellencies.
Thank you so much, Excellency, Dr. Warkene Gebeyehu, for your very good remarks. Please allow me, a guest of honor, to invite our next speaker, His Excellency Kumbola Ndaba, the ILO Regional Director. Excellency, please address the meeting.
Thank you very much, Program Director, for the opportunity that you are giving to the ILO. Honorable Omar Abdi Said, Minister of Labor, Formalization and Social Protection of the Republic of Djibouti, and also Chair of IGAD. Your Excellency Dr. Warkene Gebeyehu, Executive Secretary of IGAD. Your Excellency Dr. Alfred Mutua, Cabinet Secretary for Labor and Social Protection of the Republic of Kenya. Honorable Ministers of Labor, Social Affairs and Skills and Interior from the IGAD member states. Her Excellency Ambassador Dr. Denisa Elena Ionet, European Union Ambassador to the Republic of Djibouti and IGAD. Mr. Joel Odiko, Secretary General of the International Trade Union Confederation of Africa. Ato Kasaun Follow, General Secretary of the Horn of Africa Confederation of Trade Union, HACTU. Dr. David Moges, Secretary General of the Confederation of IGAD, of the IGAD employers. delegates from IGAD member states, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor and privilege to address this distinguished gathering at the third IGAD Ministerial Conference of Labor, or on Labor, Employment and Labor Migration. On behalf of the ILO, I extend our sincere appreciation to IGAD and the government of Kenya for hosting this important event, and to the European Union for its continued support to the regional agenda on labor mobility and decent work. I would also like to thank the Ministers of Labor and Employment, as well as the Ministers of Interior of IGAD member states, for availing themselves to join us on this occasion despite your busy schedule. This conference marks a significant milestone in our collective journey to strengthen labor migration governance in the IGAD region. It builds on the momentum of the Djibouti Declaration and the communique of the Second Ministerial Conference, which reaffirms our shared commitment to advancing decent work, protecting migrant workers, promoting fair recruitment practices, and promoting inclusive and sustainable development. Access to decent work should be a reality for everyone. While progress has been made in advancing decent work, we must confront the stark reality that persists across many regions and sectors. A considerable proportion of the global workforce is subjected to unfair working conditions, hazardous workplaces, insecure livelihoods, and denial of labor rights, contributing to persistent and profound inequalities. At the global level, the economy has been slowing down, with challenges such as geopolitical tensions, the rising cost of climate change, and unresolved debt crisis, which is putting increasing pressure on labor markets. In 2024, the estimated number of people who want to work but cannot find a job has reached 402 million, majority of whom are young and women. And this is according to the report of the ILO of 2024. In Africa, labor markets continue to be characterized by elevated levels of informality, working poverty, and limited access to decent work. Youth unemployment remains a persistent challenge, with persisting gender disparities in labor force participation. The IGAD region, with its vibrant and youthful population, holds immense potential. The region has recorded economic growth in recent years, with 7% increase in GDP between 2021 and 2022, and has a steadily growing population, majority of which is of working age. Yet this region continues to face complex socio-economic challenges, which makes it difficult to harness the potential of its young active labor force. And some of these challenges include lack of a diversified economy, slow levels of industrialization, skills mismatches, and insufficient work frameworks to facilitate recognition of skills and qualifications, gender disparities in education and labor force participation, as well as high levels of informality in the labor market, which in turn leads to several protection gaps, both through regular and irregular clandestine. Let me repeat that. Which leads to high levels of informality in the labor market, which in turn leads to several protection gaps for workers, such as lack of access to social protection mechanisms. As a result, the youth in the region have been migrating both within and outside the region, both through regular and irregular clandestine routes, in search of employment and dignified livelihoods. While migration can be driven by a wide range of socio-economic, political, and environmental factors, in the majority of cases, it is intrinsically linked to search of employment. However, limited availability for regular migration pathways remains a key barrier to ensuring safe, orderly, and regular mobility of the citizens in the region, and often compels them to migrate through irregular channels. Some of the persisting challenges include deceptive recruitment practices, living and working in hazardous environments, withholding and non-payment of wages, confiscation of identity documents, gaps in social protection, barrier to recognition of skills and qualifications, risk of exploitation, discrimination, and human trafficking. Given this context, the region has not been able to tap into the potential of labor mobility as a driver of regional development and integration. In this context, the ILO commends IGAD member states for their efforts to enhance regional coordination, policy coherence, and institutional capacity. The adoption of the Djibouti Declaration on Labor, Employment and Labor Migration, and the establishment of IGAD Ministerial Committee on Labor, Employment and Labor Migration are landmark achievements. Excellencies, to improve labor migration and mobility governance for prosperity in the IGAD region, we must prioritize policy coherence and harmonization. We must invest in robust data collection and analysis to inform evidence-based policies and monitor migration. We must establish mechanisms for the mutual recognition of skills and qualifications to enable the mobility of talent and support. And we must also expand access to social security and essential services for migrant workers regardless of their status. We must combat exploitation by strengthening measures to prevent forced labor, trafficking, and exploitation, and ensuring access to justice and remedies for affected workers. And we must also engage all stakeholders in meaningful dialogue to ensure migrant workers' voices are heard. We want to reaffirm our commitment to social justice, and I also like to emphasize the prominence of tripartite dialogue and exchange on emerging as well as persisting issues in the world of work, particularly if we want to maximize the benefits of labor migration and mobility for all. Let me conclude, Your Excellencies, by saying that the success of our collective efforts depends on strong regional cooperation and partnership. And the Djibouti Declaration on Labor, Employment and Labor Migration and this ministerial forum provides a solid platform fostering collaboration among member states, social partners, regional institutions, and international organizations. We are committed to supporting IGAD as the ILO and its member state in advancing decent work, social justice, and inclusive growth across the region. We are deeply grateful for the continued collaboration with IGAD and the EU, whose continued support has been instrumental in advancing a regional agenda rooted in decent work, rights-based migrant governance, and social justice. On behalf of the ILO, I would like to thank you all for taking time to join us, and I also want to appreciate our host for hosting this very important gathering. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. Excellency, a guest of honor, the ILO has a technical assistance delegation to IGAD Secretariat in Djibouti and has been working with IGAD member states and the Secretariat since 2016 to advance good governance of labor. Excellency, a guest of honor, please allow me also recall the Convention on Social Dialogue and Tripartism, Convention 144, which actually enjoins member states to involve trade unions and employer confederations, bodies in advancing labor standards. It's my pleasure to invite Dr. David Moges, the Secretary General of the Confederation of the IGAD Employers, to address us. David, welcome.
Thank you. Your Excellency Dr. Warkana Gabayo, Executive Secretary of IGAD, His Excellency Umar Said of the Ministry of Labor, formalization, and social protection of the Republic of Djibouti and IGAD Chair, honorable ministers, ambassadors, interior ministers from the IGAD member states, Her Excellency Ambassador Dr. Dinas Ilan Inote, European Union Ambassador to the Republic of Djibouti and IGAD, Your Excellency Mr. Kumbula Ndaba, ILO Country Director for Ethiopia, Djibouti, Somalia, Sudan, and South Sudan, and Special Representative to the African Union and Economic Commission for Africa, Ms. Niham Erdogan, I am Deputy Regional Director for Operations East, Horn, and Southern Africa, and my friend, Mr. Kassaum Follo, Secretary General of HACTU, delegates from IGAD member states, HACTU and CIA, our constituency, good morning. It is a privilege to address you on behalf of the Confederation of IGAD employers at this third ministerial conference on labor, employment, and labor migration. We thank the government of Kenya for hosting us, and IGAD, ILO, and EU for their steadfast partnership in promoting decent work, fair mobility, inclusive growth in our region. This conference builds on the Djibouti Declaration of 2021 and the Addis Ababa Review of 2023, which together established the PIDD as our guiding framework. These are not only policy milestones, they reflect a shared vision, a region where economic growth goes hand in hand with social justice and human dignity. Our theme today, improving labor migration and mobility governance for prosperity, reminds us that prosperity cannot endure without fairness, inclusion, and respect for rights. Across the IGAD region, the private sector provides more than 80% of employment and drives innovation and growth. Yet, we still face serious challenges. High youth unemployment, skills mismatch, and limited formal jobs. This is why we commend IGAD's initiatives, such as the Protocol of Free Movement of Persons and the Single Visa Initiative, which can unlock safer, better governed labor mobility. CIE believes that well-governed mobility, supported by fair recruitment and social protection, is not a burden to manage, but an opportunity to maximize for shared prosperity. Migration has long shaped our region, from traditional pastoral routes to modern labor corridors. But too many of our migrant workers, especially along the Red Sea and the Middle East routes, still face exploitation and abuse. The private sector stands ready to work with government and workers' organizations to promote ethical recruitment, predictable contracts, and bilateral labor agreements that safeguard rights while giving employers the skilled labor they need. As we always say, behind every migrant is not just a work, but a bridge between nations, carrying dignity, resilience, and promise for shared progress. Our progress depends on social dialogue, the open and institutional engagement between government, employers, and workers. Through it, we build trust and ownership. CIA, together with HACTU, has developed both CIA position paper and joint position paper submitted to the ILO and IGAD Secretariat. This expresses our united commitment to construct tripartite dialogue and the full implementation of the Djibouti and Doha Declaration. We urge that social partners be fully engaged in bilateral labor migration agreement from negotiation to monitoring, so that policies are both balanced and implemented. Our region's greatest asset is its young population. To turn this into prosperity, we say we must align education and training with labor market needs, promote mutual recognition of skills, expand social protection, including for migrant workers, and invest in digital innovation and green enterprise that creates decent jobs. As a call for reward partnership, the success of our agenda depends on sustained collaboration among governments, employers, workers, and development partners. Let us move from commitment to implementation, from words to results, so that the decision we take in Nairobi brings better job, strong protection, and fair migration system for all. CIA pledges to continue working hand in hand with IGAD, ILO, EU, HACTU, and all partners to make this vision real. In conclusion, we believe in a region where labor migration is safe, regular, and fair, where social dialogue is way of governing. Let this conference be a catalyst for action to transform our declaration into reality and shape the future of work and mobility in the IGAD region. Excellencies, allow me to depart with quotation. May migration be born not of desperation but aspiration, a bridge of opportunity connecting skills with demand, hope with progress, and nations with prosperity, shared prosperity. Thank you. God bless our region, Africa, and the world. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. David. Thank you for your remarks. In the same spirit of social dialogue and tripartism, please allow me to invite Ato Kasahun Folo, the General Secretary of the Horn of Africa Confederation of Trade Unions, accredited to the IGAD region.
Sorry. Honorable Omar Abdi Said, Ministry of Labor, Formalization and the Social Protection of the Republic of Djibouti and the Chair of IGAD. His Excellency Dr. Workene Gabeyo, Executive Secretary of IGAD. Mr. Kombula Nadaba, ILO Director for countries Ethiopia, Djibouti, Somalia, South Sudan, and Sudan. A special representative for AU and ECA. Distinguished delegates, Mr. Joel Odige, Secretary General of ITUC Africa, Mr. David Moges, Secretary General of CI, distinguished delegate of member states, distinguished partners, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor for me to address this IGAD Ministerial Conference on Labor, Employment, and Labor Migration. Since its inception, our inter-regional trade union, the Horn of African Confederation of Trade Union, HACTU, has been closely working with IGAD on labor, employment, and labor migration to advance workers' rights and welfare. On behalf of HACTU, and its affiliates, I would like to thank IGAD Executive Secretary, His Excellency Dr. Workene Gabayo, and the Minister of Labor of respective IGAD member state for unreserved support provided to us for putting in place key policy instruments and the platform that advance workers' basic human and labor rights. Building upon the fruit collaboration of our governments and the employers' organization CIE and on achievements attained until now and enhancing the constructive social dialogue, we as HACTU would like to raise the following concerns on this third ministerial conference. The needs for peace and security. We deeply understand that peace and security are the foundation of progress. Without peace, we cannot utilize our natural resource effectively. No improvement of working condition, or we cannot reduction poverty. Peace allows our industries to grow, our workers to thrive, and our nations to prosper. Therefore, we urge all stakeholders to prioritize lasting peace and security in our region, for without them, sustainable development will remain out of reach. Second, the importance of the free movement of persons. Honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, we must also reaffirm our commitment to the free movement of persons. God created this planet for all humankind, not to be confined within artificial boundaries, to live, work, and prosper everywhere. The border we know today were drawn largely for the colonial purposes or administrative convenience, not to limit our shared humanity. Therefore, the free movement of persons is not merely an economic or political issue. It is a fundamental human right. IGAD has taken an important step by developing the protocol on the free movement of persons. This initiative reflects our respect for human dignity and our recognition of the natural rights of all people. For those member states that have not yet ratified or domesticated the protocol, we respectfully urge you to do so and ratify all relevant international conventions on migration governance. This will help us to promote safe, orderly, and dignified migration across our region. 3, social dialogue governance. Honorable ministers, to achieve sustainable industrial peace, higher productivity, workers' dignity, and a decent work for all, we must strengthen social dialogue. Through genuine consultation and cooperation, we can close the gaps in workers' protection, enhance productivity, and promote equitable growth. Social dialogue is not an option, it is a necessity for building a just and inclusive labor governance system. Together, through partnership, peace, and dialogue, we can build a future where labor contributes to prosperity, justice, and human dignity across our sub-region. In conclusion, HACTU hopes that the communique submitted to Your Excellency for adoption would be leap forward for addressing serious key issues of our sub-region. I'm confident it will be implemented in all member states. HACTU committed to work and collaborate with government and the employers for the better life of our people. I thank you for your kind attention to advance workers' side and welfare. Thank you.
Thank you so much, HACTU. Thank you for addressing us. Thank you, also for working very hard with IGAD member states to ensure that we abide by the international labor standards on labor governance. Excellency, this journey has been supported by a very faithful partner of the IGAD and its member states. That is the European Union, and we are pleased here that we are with Her Excellency Ambassador Denisa, who I would like to request to come and make her remarks. Welcome, Ambassador.
Thank you very much. Excellency, Minister of Labor and Social Affairs of Djibouti, the Chair of IGAD, Excellency, Cabinet Secretary of Kenya, our distinguished host today, Excellency, Executive Secretary of IGAD, dear Dr. Workne, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, ministers representing the IGAD member states, ladies and gentlemen, a representative of the social partners, dear participants representing the national authorities, dear colleagues and partners of the international development and international organization, dear participants, let me start first of all by expressing how honored I am today in my capacity as European Union ambassador accredited to IGAD to take the floor today for this important ministerial meeting, and also to mention how proud I am that European Union provides its contribution to this proof of engagement and commitment of the member states of IGAD and of the Secretariat to tackle one of the most important issues, which is the free movement of workers, the migration, a key element for the social development, but also for sustainable peace and sustainable development in the region. Many things have been mentioned about the issues discussed today, so I do not want to take too much time, but allow me please to mention three main aspects. First of all, I would like to point out our partnership with IGAD. Second, I would like to make just some punctual comments regarding the topics that were approached. And third, to emphasize the future of our partnership and working together to deliver outcomes for the region and for the whole world. First of all, let me say that the European Union, the European institutions and its member states and IGAD have a long and outstanding partnership. Against the background of the current global situation, when multilateralism is under threat, I would like to strongly reaffirm the European Union's position to continue to be a stable, credible, and reliable partner, a partner that listens to its partners, a partner that agrees together with them on what we will together work, and which follows together and communicates jointly on the outcomes. And the partnership with IGAD is a good example with this regard. In the same vein, I would like to reaffirm and to reiterate EU's commitment and support to a UN system fit to better tackle the current and the future challenges, and to an international system based on the rule of law, based on the force of the law and not on the law of the force. The European Union is well aware of the challenges the IGAD region faces and which intensified in the last years, amongst which the conflicts in its own space and in the neighborhoods, their impact on economy and trade, the climate change, the distortions of the global trade. In today's globalized world, These are common challenges for us as Europeans also, and we share the same interests to address them and the same values and how to tackle them. And I am very pleased and very proud, and I say this under control of the Executive Secretary, that we have definitely for the last years beefed up our joint dialogue and action with IGAD and with the IGAD member states, notably through conducting a senior officials meeting, IGAD European Union, in May 2025 in Brussels, followed 10 days later in Djibouti by a full-fledged partnership dialogue. I say full-fledged, and it was indeed the first full-fledged, because it was not only the content of the dialogue, which the dialogue itself, but its reporting through the working system, through working parties of the Council of the European Union, which was for the first time a full-fledged report with full-fledged conclusions. And hopefully, before the end of the year, we will have also a joint IGAD EU Ambassadors Committee, drawing on the future outcomes of the African Union, European Union Summit, which will take place in 1 month in Luanda. Ladies and gentlemen, let me go now attack the second block of my intervention and just point a few issues. First of all, about labor and employment. I would like to commend the efforts for further implementation of the Djibouti Declaration commitments, particularly on policy coherence, labor market systems, and skills development. And we fully agree on the importance of operationalizing the labor market observatories, the skills partnership, and especially the youth skilling programs across IGAD member states to ensure prosperity at regional level. Regarding the labor migration governance, I am deeply impressed of the responsibility and engagement with which the discussions were held throughout the time I could assist myself to the exchanges, and especially for the efforts for coordination and synergy across ministries. Having here together the ministries of labor and of interiors is a proof of this process, as well as the work with the social partners in the tripartite format. We encourage this initiative and also moving forward to in-depth discussions on data, regulation, and bilateral agreements that we are ready to support through technical assistance. Regarding the IGAD single visa initiative, what can I say as an European, and especially an European that joined the European Union among the last arrivals? It is very important because the freedom of movement of people, capital, goods and services is part of the genetic code of the European Union and of the prosperity that came with. We know there is a lot of work ahead, and definitely we learn a lot also, and it is thus important to connect with some efforts on digital connectivity, creation of interoperable digital platforms. And I'm mentioning this because the digital connectivity is another flagship initiative of the European Union through the Global Gateway. My third sub-point would go to the irregular migration and the Red Sea route. Personally, in my previous posting, I've seen the drama of the migration, irregular migration in West Africa. I know very well, longer or shorter, irregular migration roads are roads of suffering, are roads of loss of dignity, are loss and the loss of trust. This is why we acknowledge that the Red Sea route remains one of the most dangerous migratory pathways, and we encourage and we will support the joint action and the political will expressed here and expressed in each of the member states of IGAD. We are ready to assess and to discuss how we can enlarge the palette of our support upon request of IGAD and of the national authorities to other strategies and to other actions or to identify new modalities of support. Let me go now to my last point, which is working together. Definitely, the European Union support can be mobilized more effectively where there is clear ownership, structured coordination, and accountability frameworks. At the same time, European Union provides support through several instruments and mechanisms and through several operational partners. This is why I would like to commend the work of the International Organization of Migration, International Labour Organization, but also of other UN organizations that implement EU finance programs, that work, for example, in providing assistance to migrants and to host communities, providing technical capacity building on cross-cutting issues, like, for example, gender equality, gender-based violence, and all other transversal matters. We stand ready to enhance the coordination and the synergy across these work strands. And today's conference and the work that we see ahead is a good example of bringing the stakeholders together. It is thus important to apply the spirit of this conference in practice across the implementing partners and donor agencies. For example, in connecting and balancing the policies addressing the irregular migration with those aiming to foster regular, ordered, and safe migration. While each country has its own specificities and needs, the regional efforts will add value in advancing together. Another important connection to make, I think, is the one with the economic investment and support to social development. The Horn of Africa initiative, which is synergic with EU's Global Gateway, and where the member states of IGAD are represented, is another work stream to integrate in this joint effort. Ladies and gentlemen, let me close by mentioning once again that EU sees IGAD as a strategic partner and a strategic regional actor shaping together sustainable peace and development in the region and on the continent. This ministerial offers a timely opportunity